Good morning everyone and welcome to QuickBooks Online, the new GST Setup. My name is Lauretta Finis and I run a bookkeeping practice called Quick Business Bookkeeping Solutions. I'm a bookkeeper, a BAS agent, and I train QuickBooks Online. You can see my logos. I am a Certified Pro Advisor with QuickBooks Online and I am an Advanced Certified Pro Advisor with QuickBooks Online. Today what we will be doing is looking at the brand new GST Centre. It's a whole new look. It's easier to use and navigate around, and we have a lot more reports than what we had previously in the older GST look. Now some of you may still have the old GST Centre look, but don't forget they will all be brought across by the end of February. And voila, this is what it looks like, guys. Nice, clean, gives you a bit of a summary at the top. It lets you know the next BAS to lodge and the BASs you already have lodged. Okay, so let's get into a live demonstration, everyone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this file. Now, for the people that have been on my webinars before, you all know that the files that I use aren't real, of course, and today's setup of GST, I'm going to use Miami Vice Detectives. All right, so this is what your file looks like. On the left-hand side, navigation bar, we'll just click into GST. Now, at this stage, this file is not set up for GST. And there's a few things that I want to point out to you is if your file or if your client's file, if they are not registered for GST, don't set this up, because I'm going to show you why. So if I go to my Global Create button and if I click into an expense, you will please note that there is no GST column. This way you won't have any difficulties trying to decide what GST code to use if you are not registered for GST. This is one of the main problems that I see when I rescue a file, is that they're not registered for GST and yet they're still picking up their GST codes. So then we have to go in and delete all those codes or change them around to out of scope. So this is really nice, really clean. Do not set up GST if they are not registered for GST. So it's a bit of a tip there, guys. So all I need to do, if we are registered for GST, is click Set Up GST. This will bring up a window where we have to put in some details. So for this particular file, Miami Vice Detectives is registered for monthly. So I'm going to choose monthly. I'm going to leave it at July because I always use my current GST starting period as July. The GST method, are they accrual or are they cash? And then of course, I'm going to leave mine on accruals, and of course the ABN number. I think you all know, guys, that this one here is not a real ABN number. And then what PAYG instalment do we have? Do not confuse this with your PAYG withholding for your payroll for your employees. This is the PAYGI, so the instalment for your business or for your company that your accountant or the ATO have set up. So I'm just going to choose it by instalment. And then do we have these other taxes in this business? You can decide if it's got fringe benefits tax, that's fuel tax credit, whatever the client needs. Okay, I'm just going to untick them just for this exercise. And then click Next. And yay, we have set up GST. That's how easy it is. So what I want to show you now, if I next go into my expense area, you can see I now have a GST code that I need to decide what to use. Okay, so that's why it's really important if your clients are not registered for GST or your business is not registered for GST, don't set up GST. And there you go, and that's what a brand new GST Centre looks like with no GST summary. Okay, what I will do now is move into my other file, Buddy and Denoso Pet Supplies, where I'll be running through the GST Centre and how to actually run that. So from the left-hand side navigation bar, we click on GST. And this is what it looks like. As you can see, we do have data in this file, and we have some history as well of BASs lodged and paid and some not paid. So let me walk you through this. So top, middle, we have the summary of what. Now, just to let you know, everyone, that this GST file, this file is on a monthly GST. Okay, so it's monthly. So I'm looking at running the December BAS. This has given me a little bit of an overview of what's actually happened in the file for that month. I want to walk you towards the right-hand side where we have Edit GST. If I click into this field, I've got two settings and rates, so I can, if I wanted to, I could change either one of those. So let's have a look at that. So let's click into the Edit settings. And as you can see, it's basically the same window as what I just did previously for the setup of the Miami Vice Detectives. Okay, so if I did have to change it to cash, I could change it to cash. Okay, if I had to fix up the ABN number, or if they changed from instalments to income tax rate, if they didn't have fridge benefits tax or wine tax, I could also change that as well. In this particular example, I've left them all along, so I want to show you what it looks like and what you need to do for each one of these. Click Save. And of course, it takes you back to the window, and the tax settings have been saved. The next little area is Edit the Rate. So these are the rates that are set up by default with QuickBooks Online. GST on non-capital, GST free non-capital. Both these GST codes are basically for your expenses, for your bills. Then you have GST on capital and GST free capital. These are for your capital items that you purchase, whether it's a motor vehicle, machinery, any type of asset. So it's either GST free capital or GST on capital. Then we have GST and GST free. Both of these codes are for your sales. Now, also, a bit of a tip, everyone, if you are purchasing from overseas, if you are selling overseas, I would use GST-free exports, okay? If you are purchasing from overseas, I would use GST-free non-capital, okay? Then we have input tax, and that's basically for your investment properties, and that's something that you need to talk to your accountant about so that you know that you are using the correct GST code if you are registered for GST and you have an investment property. Then of course we have W1 and W2. Now this is where payroll sits. So when you actually run a payroll, the journal will actually be produced after running that payroll, and it will apply the gross payroll amount to W1 and then the PAYG amount to W2. Okay, you can add a tax rate if you like, top right corner. I personally, in all my clients' files, I do not add a rate, but there are instances where you do have to, so that's exactly where you go to actually add the tax rate. Okay, let's just move on back into our GST Centre. And again, that's where you can add the tax as well. Okay, everyone? Now, just moving on down the window, we have BAS, which is giving us a summary of all the lodged BAS. As you can see in this file, I've lodged all these BASs. And then this is telling me that my next BAS to lodge is December, as you can easily see. Then we've got our second tab, which is payments. And these payments are payments that will show up if you have applied the payment. I'm going to show you this, how to do this, if you have applied the payment within this GST Centre. It won't show a payment if you've used a transfer button or you've used an expense button or a journal entry to process the payments off your BAS. Just letting you know that this area will only show payments. Okay, so you can view, you can delete if you've mucked one up, you can actually go in and delete it and refix it. You can also record a PAYG payment as well. Let's go back to BAS. They're the two tabs. View reports. Okay, so we've got a few new reports in this section. Okay, they are sitting under the reports tab, under all reports taxes, but we now have it visible within the GST Centre. We have a GST liability report, a transactions without GST. I personally, as a BAS agent, do check all the transactions within that period to make sure that every transaction has been coded correctly. Because if it hasn't been coded correctly, you will undoubtedly have the incorrect balances that you have to pay the ATO. If you then go into an audit, then you will have to amend the actual BAS. We also have a profit and loss as well, and there's another report that I always check as well, and that's my balance sheet. I check my GST control account to the amount payable. I check my PAYG withholding in the balance sheet and make sure that that is correct as well, and a few other control accounts as well. So as you can see, our next BAS to lodge is December. Before I go any further, I'm just going to scroll down a little bit and just show you the summary of the new look and what it actually does. So let's have a look at under lodged BAS. So this is awesome. It's telling us exactly each period that we have lodged and the actual date that we actually hit lodged in QuickBooks Online, not the date that you actually lodged to the ATO. Just remember that, okay? The amount due is the amount due to the ATO. Now, here's our new column, payments. It's a little bit different to the old look. I quite like this look much, much better, because if I just scroll down to the next one, my October BAS, you can quite easily see that the amount due was $1,722. I've actually paid $1,000, but guess what? I've got $722 left to pay off. Now I'm going to show you how that's done. So you've got record payment, so it intuitively knows the next logical step is we still have $722 outstanding, so we do need to record that payment. So let's record that payment. As you can see, I can choose my bank account, the bank account that I paid it out of. I'm just going to choose this bank account here. Yes, it's a payment. Yes, it's still the GST period. Okay, so the GST due for that period was $1,722. Now, GST paid this period is $1,000. And I know for a fact that we now have left to pay $722. And memo, I can say remainder of payment for October. And I click save. It's been recorded. Now, when we next look at the October BAS, it now says that the amount due was $17.22. We paid $17.22 and it's lodged and paid. And now the next thing that we can do is actually view our BAS summary. And this is what the BAS summary looks like, guys. This is the BAS summary that we have actually already lodged to the ATO. We only paid $1,000. And then the remainder of the $722 I've just paid. There's a few other buttons there as well, guys. You can view the BAS details. You can, if there's an amendment details, just to let you know, in the previous GST Centre, it was called an exceptions report. Okay, it's now called the amendment detail report. You can view payments, and also you can record a refund if you were accepting that refund. Now, where that paid button sits, the paid amount, if I click under payments, we'll be able to see my $722 was paid today for that GST period, and I did put in the memo remainder of payment for October. Okay, as you can see, here's my other $1,000. I can view that payments. Let's view the payment I just did today. There it is there. And you can see I can print and I can delete it if I need to. If I need to fix something up, I can delete it, and done. The other thing that you can do is delete it directly from there if you need to. Okay, so that's how the payment section works within the BAS, and I think that's a much cleaner look than what the older version was. Okay, so as you can see, if I just scroll down a little bit, you can see that the August BAS was for $89. We paid $200, and we do have $289 still left to pay, and so forth and so forth. So the one from March to, so that's January to March, so it's a quarter, that one. I lodged $2,149, and yet I've not paid it. I could very well have paid it through this section, journal entry, or I might have done an expense, or I might have done a transfer from bank account to the BAS suspense account. So just be very wary of the older ones that you have done. And what we're doing for our clients is we're just making sure the last, because I know that all our GST control accounts balance, so I know what is correct. So we're just picking up the last two and just running from there. And what's been in the last, say the last 10 months, 12 months, 24 months, whatever, however long the BAS has been lodged within QuickBooks Online, we're just going to let it go. Okay, you can just let it go. It doesn't have to be lodged and paid each time. Okay, as long as it's lodged, that way it will close your GST Centre down, your GST, exactly the same way that the old QuickBooks Online GST Centre, once you click that mark as lodged, it will close that period down. It does the same thing here. Okay, so in saying all that, there's also a little cogs wheel there that you can actually choose to see a lot more rows if you needed to. And that's your action buttons there, everyone. And I can close them down, as you can see. So let's just open them back up again and open that one up again. I could, however, just close that down so I only see what is next to be lodged. Okay? So a great little look. Also too, I can close that top bit up as well if I want to. So if you do go in and you don't see any BAS summaries up there, there's your little down arrow, click on there and it will reappear again. Okay? So let's have a look at our BAS for December. So we do have a bit of a summary. That's our BAS for December there, next to be lodged. I can see the amount due is $13,102. It's still open, okay, I haven't lodged it. We do have some reports that I would have already have looked at, and if I had to change a transaction, if I picked up that there was an incorrect GST coding on a transaction, I would have changed that by this stage. My next lot of reports are, these three reports are in the old GST Centre, and as I mentioned before, that amendment detail report used to be called the exemptions detail report. Okay, so let's have a look at the view amendment detail report. I may not have any. No, I don't have any. So if I did, it would actually come up with the actual changes that need to be changed to my BAS summary. Okay, what I will do actually is I will change an expense. So we've got one transaction for us prior to November. So let's have a look at this one. Just a moment while I fix this up, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the payment, and it was prior to December. So let me now go back into my BAS Centre, the GST Centre. Let me choose those 3 reports. New amendment report. Okay, so what I've actually done there is I've actually picked up the wrong date, so I do apologise, everyone. So this BAS amendment report is basically for any transactions that you have transacted on prior to the November BAS being lodged. If there was any changes, it would show up on this report. Okay, so let's now go back to our GST tenders. That's the first one that I check. So I don't have to worry about, it's going to be nice and clean for me this time. So drop down box, view BAS details. Make sure in this BAS detail report, okay, that's awesome. It's remembered that we're in December. That is really cool. Previously, we'd always have to change that, so it looks as if that QuickBooks Online now remembers we are doing December's, and it's picked up the BAS detail report for December. What I do in this report is I just scroll down, make sure that all our GST codes are correct. If there's something that I do need to change, all I need to do is I don't have to go out of this window. I can just choose the transaction that hasn't been picked up quite correctly. So let's just say that this should have been GST free, as this is an overseas transaction, Facebook ads, and that should be inclusive of tax, and save and close. So now that transaction has disappeared from G11 because we no longer have the GST amounts. Okay, let me just refresh that window for you. Okay, cool. So that transaction for Facebook for $40-something has disappeared. I think it was $33 actually, and it should be found. There it is there, $42.35. It's now under our GST free. So that's how quick and easy it is to actually change a transaction. You don't have to go out of this window, try to find it, change it, and then make sure that it's all correct. So I'm still in this GST Centre, and you can see how, the BAS detail report. Once I've checked that and I know that's all correct, I'll go back to my GST Centre, and my other report I check is the View BAS Summary. So I click into the BAS Summary, and there's December's. Awesome, it remembers that we're in December. So this is what I'd be checking, making sure again that I don't have GST free capital purchases. I don't have GST on capital purchases if they shouldn't be in there for this particular period. So I'm just scrolling down, checking my GST amounts. I've got $25,470 for GST sales. I have $10,093 for GST on purchases. I also have a PAYG amount. That's $2,652. So how do we check this amount, guys? Because it's nothing to do with GST, is it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a second window. Now this is a Chrome feature, everyone, that if I just hover, so if you have a look at my mouse, I'm just hovering over the top tab where it says Buddy and Denoso Pet Supplies. I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose Duplicate. Once I choose Duplicate, it will come up with exactly the same window. Okay, and what we're doing is we are checking that the 2652 on our total salary and wages for December is correct. And where I check that is I go into the Employee Centre. So guys, while this is waiting, you can see that it's not that different from what we used to do in the old centre. It's more streamlined, it's easier to find. Okay, so then I go into reports and I will run the detailed activity report. And the detailed activity report will be for the month of December. So I'm going to custom range, I'm going to go back to the 1st of December, and I'm going to choose the end date, which is the 31st of December, and apply. There it is there. I'm going to run that report, and this is the report that I use to check that our gross earnings, now I would actually check that to my profit and loss for December, and this is the PAYG 2652, gross 660160. Let's go back to our BAS, and there it is, 660160 and 2652. So we know that the PAYG that we have processed in our payroll has come across correctly to our BAS centre. So that's one other thing that I also check. Then we have GST on sales and GST, yep, so it's 2547 and 10093. 10, I'm just writing that down. Okay, and at the moment it shows us that we should be paying 13106. Forget about the cents, because the ATO, don't worry about the cents, okay? So this is our BAS summary report for December. This report is for all the transactions that have gone through QuickBooks Online, whether they be invoices, bills, sales receipts, expenses, journals. Every transaction that has a GST code has gone through QuickBooks Online. This is where it will pick up in this BAS summary report. Let me go back to my second tab, and what I'm going to show you is the difference. GST Centre again, and I'm going to choose now, so this is what we've done so far. We've checked these reports, then we've checked these reports. So we know that, hey, you know what? We're pretty much spot on now. We've checked everything. All the GST codes have been checked. They've been changed if we've had to. Now we're ready to prepare the BAS. And this is what it looks like. Yes, we are in the month of December, and this is what we are lodging. It will show me, also too, it does show me that I'm in accruals. So I have got this file as accruals as well. So I have total sales, non-capital purchases. Here's our salaries and wages, and we know that they are correct, don't we? Okay. Now you do have a couple of fields in here. I don't really use these because my clients don't have to. I don't have clients that we do need to, but occasionally you might have to vary something. So what will happen here is you'll actually add that into this field, but it will not affect this particular transaction, the total. Where it will affect the total is if you're adding in any wet GST code, any GST on wet, that was sales and so forth. Okay, now this is your purchases side of things. At the moment, don't forget we're sitting at 13106. I'm just going to choose fuel tax credit, so I'm just going to pretend that this client is going to be able to get a credit back of $1,002. So all I do, and they're all the same, guys, no matter which section you're in, I click on record and it will come up with my date. This you cannot change because it's your fuel tax credit. You can't change the rate. Tax line is 7D. The account that it will actually affect is your BAS or your GST account, okay? The adjustment account is the one that I choose because I'm not going to adjust my bank account, am I? No, siree, I'm not going to change that. What I am going to change is in this file, I do actually have an account specifically for FBT credits, okay? So I'll just choose FBT credits, and the amount that I'm going to adjust is $1,002. And in my memo, I write something like this: accountant figures received, because I get the accountant to actually work out the FBT. Even though I'm a BAS agent, I'll get the accountant for our client. We've got 2 clients that are on FBT. I'll get them to actually work it out for the client. Then, so don't forget it's $1,002, guys. And what did we say our balance should have been? 13106. So I'm going to show you the back end of what happens here. So I'm going to click save. And then all of a sudden in our FBT area, fuel tax, we now have $1,002 and it's actually reduced our payment, because it's a credit, don't forget that. It's reduced our payment by 1,002, and now we only owe the ATO $12,104. $12,104. Okay, so I'm pretty cool with that. I'm ready to lodge. All right, so guess what? I can print. I can export it out. Let me show you what the print button looks like. There you go. If you want to, here's a bit of a tip. See those the actual line down the bottom? Click on More Settings. Untick headers and footers. There you go. All right, and then you can play around with it if you want to see it on landscape or whatever you want to see it on, and then you can print it off for your records. When we print, everyone, we actually PDF it and we actually save it in Dropbox now, because we've gone green. Our office has gone green. I'm so proud of that. So there you go. So we're all ready to rock and roll now. Okay, so I'm going to click Mark as Lodged. Look what happens when I click Mark as Lodged. It says, hey, this is going to mark your BAS as lodged and close your books down for this GST period. So any transactions prior from this period, so anything before December, if they are changed later, and that's what I was trying to show you in the amendment report, but I've picked up the one with the wrong date, will show up in the GST amendment report. And I'm just going to back a bit, just to show you that if we did actually have something in the amendment report, guess what, guys? You would actually have 2 more columns. So where G1 is, that column there, we would have an extra 2 columns that would show you the amendment amount in gross, and it would show you the GST amendment. It would then add back into your figures, whether it's GST on purchases or GST on sales, and it would reflect in your payment due. Because let's take it back to our GST summary, this will always remain 13,106. All right, this will remain always at 13,106, because as I said, these transactions are for December only, all transactions for December. Okay, so that is why occasionally you will see this summary report slightly different to your GST workings sheet. This is what I use this for. If I need to, as I did with the fuel tax credit, if I had an amendment amounts as well, they would add back into this report, not my BAS summary. Okay, just remember that this BAS summary is only for transactions for this particular period. This is our worksheet for this particular period, and then any adjustments that needed to be adjusted back into the total, plus any other taxes we had to add back in and record. All right, now I'm going to mark it as lodged. Yes, I'm happy with that. Let's click continue, done, and guess what? We have now lodged our December BAS. And there it is there, guys. We've lodged it. However, I can look at the BAS summary again, I can look at the details, and I can view the amendment details again. If it was a refund, I could record the refund there. But guess what? I'm going to record a payment. Here it is here. So the payment's going to come out of what bank account? Let's just say the ANZ check account this time. It is a payment. It's for December. It's $12,104. That's the payment date today. So we're just going to say we're just going to pay $5,000, and I'm going to say part payment. Click save. And it's done. So when we go back next, it should give us the running balance of our GST. How's that? Pretty cool. Now, what I do want to show you, what's actually happened behind the scenes, the back end. Let's click up to our View Recent Transactions, and you can see I've got a couple of journals there. Now let's have a look at the first one. The GST adjustment is for the fuel tax credit that I actually processed. My account that I've actually allocated my FBT credits to is an account that I call FBT credits. The date, and also, guys, if I've stuffed up something, I can actually delete that adjustment as well. Okay, let's have a look at our next one. Sorry, going to our view recent transactions, and then we have the journal entry. Now, this journal entry is the closing of December's period, of December's figures. You can see we've got the BAS suspense sitting at 12,104. You can see that the PAYG is 2652, and the actual BAS, which is your GST collected less your GST paid, is now 9452. But guess what, guys? It also includes the FBT credit, okay? And this is the amount that will be sent off to the ATO when you run your actual lodgement, either through the business portal if you're a business owner, through the BAS or the tax portal if you are an accounting professional, or like me, I use Gov Reports, okay? Now, there's one thing that I do, and that is I will change my date to reflect the period that I'm actually closing down. Because what this will do, it will reduce my liabilities in my GST control account by the amount that it should be paid by. Okay? And let's save and close. And done. Now, the other entry was the GST payment. So this is what the GST payment looks like. And if you've stuffed up again, guess what? You can delete that payment too. So that's pretty cool, just in case we do make errors, and you can delete that payment. Now, what I do want to show you is behind the scenes in the balance sheet. What would have happened is when we've run, yep, it's December, that's good. So when we've actually run the journal, when we've lodged as marked as payment, the amounts will, as you can see, we now only have 73 cents left in our BAS liabilities paid and collected, because that is my GST account that I use, okay? I've actually renamed it, and I'll show you how when I show you the blog. Now, what it's actually done is it's actually picked up, if you remember that journal, it's actually picked up the GST that we have to pay, the PAYG that we have to pay, and the other account that it sent it to was the BAS suspense. And here it is here, $12,104. If I click into it, there it is there. So we're actually using the BAS suspense as a clearing account, okay? And if, what's today's date? The 16th of Feb. So if I just move this out to the 16th of Feb, 17, run report, you'll be able to see that I've deducted the $5,000 today's date. I also paid the $722. So you can see this is now giving you a running balance. So if you wanted to, you could actually use this as your running balance account. Okay, everyone? Just to let you know on that one. So let's go back. So they're the GST account, sorry, and also the PAYG. So it would have actually reduced my PAYG withholding as well. And here it is here by 2652. So it's actually reduced it to what it was when I did the December monthly payroll. And it's actually picked up the balance of what it was before. Guys, in the real world, my GST control accounts, PAYG withholding, and superannuation reconcile to what they should really owe. It's just, this is a training file. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to show you is that fuel tax credit. What's actually happened to it? Reports, profit and loss. Now, I know that there are some accountants that like us to process the FBT credits as an asset in the balance sheet, but I'm not going to sit here and discuss that. So it's up to you to work out with your accountant where they would like the FBT credits to sit. So as you can see in our profit and loss, if I just click under other income, because that's where my other under other income, FBT credits, that's where I've got it sitting. Let's click into 1790, and you'll be able to see that in November we actually processed $788 for the FBT, sorry, not FBT, I kept saying FBT, fuel tax credit, and then the one that we just did in December was $1,002. And that's where it goes back end. And that's the same as all your other taxes that you've got set up. So don't forget, guys, you need to set up in your chart of accounts wherever it is that you need your, so let me just check, yeah, this one here. Let's go view BAS Summary. As you can see, you can actually allocate, because I actually had all these boxes selected as other taxes when I set up this file for GST. So if I've got luxury car tax, credit from PAYG income, credit from FBT, fuel tax credits. Remember, I actually processed the transaction and applied the fuel tax credit back to fuel tax credit income. And you will actually see it sitting there. And when you actually lodge your BAS, that's where in the ATO, that's where what you need to pick up. One more thing I want to show you, and we've just about finished and we are out of time. Let's go to our, if I go to, I'll just walk you back, intuit.com.au, under Learn and Support, Product Updates. Scroll down until you find the blog called BAS Center, A Brand New Look. In this blog, we deep dive and we actually show you how to set up the GST. This is the old look GST, by the way, that should be changed. You saw today the new look GST, how to set that up. Also, this has changed a little bit. But what I want to bring to your attention is when you set up that GST account, the GST Center, you have two accounts that are opened automatically for you by the system. One is called the BAS Liabilities Payable and the other one is called the BAS Suspense. And I actually explained to you as well that you can go in and change what they are called. If you wanted to call that the ATO clearing account, the BAS Suspense. If you wanted to call, I called mine, instead of BAS Liabilities Payable, what did I call mine? Reports, balance sheet, BAS Liabilities Paid and Collected. So this is where you can tailor what you want to see in your client's files. Okay, everyone? So then I go into how to actually process the BAS and so forth. There is one thing I want to bring to your attention. We also have a checklist as well. Oh, that's the old BAS Lodge. In this blog, we also have a checklist, everyone, that what you need to do before you actually get to the stage of running a BAS, and that is just making sure that you've reconciled all your bank accounts, making sure that you have picked up, okay, it is in here somewhere, I do apologise, making sure that you've picked up everything, okay, if you can't find it there, it is another blog, okay, so you will find it. I always thought it was in here. Okay, everyone, so that is the end of the presentation today. Hopefully you now truly understand what the GST Centre does, how easy and more streamlined it is, I feel, than the old look GST. Okay, and as I said, you don't have to make them paid from this section. You can actually use whatever you've been using in the past, journal entry, transfer or expense, but you just won't see lodged and paid. You'll only see lodged. And you won't actually get a running balance under the amount due, payments, and then your balance. That's the only difference. Okay, everyone, so thank you very much for listening. If you have any queries, I am staying back for questions. Otherwise, please shoot us a quick email and we will endeavour to answer all your questions around the new GST Centre. Thank you, take care and stay safe.